Great question. I'll try to keep that in less than 1 minute, but to do that, I have to refer people to healthy-teaching.org so that they can get more details. But essentially, again, that's what I started at with earlier. It's not a single bullet problem, but the airflow and the air we breathe is really the medium from which this virus is infecting us, right? So it's really an inhalation process that need to occur. So as much as surface cleaning and management of common surfaces and sharing of spaces from a surface contamination point of view remains still, of course, important, particularly with kids that might be putting their hands everywhere and not wearing masks and all of that. The airflow is very important to keep in mind. It's not something that you see, so it's not something that is intuitive to take care of, but we have the tools. There are, results that are intuitive to keep in mind with the essentially increasing the number of air changes by any means possible that would bring in clean air. Just keeping in mind, again, how to manage that and how to position individuals in it. Keeping in mind that the buildup in a room that is more still, that wouldn't have the right filtration is really what would lead to high exposure over time. Therefore, also making sure that that's always in the mind, particularly when we're talking about lunchtime, for example, as well. We're having kids that are en masse, potentially, hopefully outdoors as much as possible. So one of the big recommendations to counter what I just said is, if you could do everything outdoors, in fact, do that, including, teaching outside. I'm sure it could be a really great experience for kids. So as much as possible, weather permitting, outdoor activities are better than indoor activities. If it's enmasked or we don't have the ability to really maintain on kids tightly fit masks, and again, the tightness of the mask is as important, if not more important, than the filtration level itself. Because if you have a high filter, like what we talked about earlier, but you have gaps in the side, air fluids are lazy, flow is going to go through the path of least resistance wherever it's open. So that means that essentially it's almost like not having a mask if you're shedding a virus. So maintaining masks and tight masks for adults as well, they could have breakthrough infections and might be shedding without knowing it in a classroom. That's very, very important. For kids, there are adapted masks that can be tight fitted. Very hard to say if they would be able to keep them on for that long, obviously. So that's why you have to have really in mind that where they are, outside versus inside, and that if they are inside, that air is filtered or cleaned or refreshed as frequently as possible. These are sort of the two things. This is probably more than a minute, but the last point I want to just highlight very quickly is the distances. There's a lot of debates about these distances. What you keep in mind here is it's not the big blobs of drops that matter, is again the airflow. When you're close within that essentially that 2 meter distance, what you can have if you have en masse kids is essentially exposure to a highly concentrated cloud that is still not yet spread out and diluted in that space, which means that even though you want just to have high airflows and not really think just about where to place the individuals or the desks, keeping still in mind that even outside, if you're unmasked, if you're talking very close to another person, you are breathing their concentrated exhalate. So keep in mind, it's airflow, it's not big blobs, but that airflow needs time or needs an obstacle or needs a counter air to mix and dilute. And that's what you're trying to achieve with all these measures. And I think understanding that principle hopefully helps to make all these decisions.